Welcome back to Lisa's Family Table. I have been dying to test out something I've been doing some reading on. There have been several articles written about a rice. It's called Koji rice, K-O-J-I. So it's called Koji rice. This is a fermented rice. They use this typically to make miso. So you know when you have miso or miso soup and you get that umami flavor, this is what ferments the miso, the soybeans. And if you've ever dropped your phone in water and then you put it in a bag full of rice, my hypothesis is that this will draw the water out, the moisture out, and the fermentation of the rice will kind of give it that umami, that sort of funk you get, good funk, with a dry aged steak. So we're going to have an experiment today. Russell and Rick and I, what we're going to do is we're going to look at 3 different cuts of meat. And one has been treated with the Koji, one is actually dry aged, and the other one is not. And we're going to grill them on our Rectech using the searing capability, and then we're going to taste them. So we've never done this before, and we're going to let you know how it tastes. And if it's great, then you know you can do this. So the thing of it is I just put this in my mini food processor, ground it up, and I put it on the steak, and I let it sit on the steak for up to 48 hours. I actually did it yesterday morning, so it didn't have the full amount. So let me walk you through what I've got here though. So this is a ribeye. It's a choice cut, and we dry aged this in our meat aging locker for 21 days. You can see the darkening of the color. It's a dry aged piece of steak. Not everybody has a meat locker, and I have to be honest, I wouldn't have one either, but I want it, so I brought it home. We threw it in our car from a competition and brought it home, and it's a great piece of equipment, but let's face it, I mean, if I didn't win it, I probably, for my home use, would not invest in one. All right, so here's the actual dry aged steak. This steak is a Angus steak. This comes from the Hassel Meat Company. What Doug Hassel calls his meat is he calls it blue collar Wagyu, so I'm going to call it what he calls it. And the reason he does that is he's creating a Wagyu product that's affordable. So this is a very affordable Wagyu, and you can see the different fatty striations in it. It's a beautiful cut of meat. My dog is excited. He is actually barking out of thrill for this recipe. This is the same, this actually came from the same ribeye. This one we dry aged, this one we did not, and this one here has been treated with the Koji rice. And so you don't wash it off. What you have to do is you have to kind of scrape everything off. It's a little icky, I gotta be honest with you. Okay, I got a knife to help me scrape off the Koji rice. And it says not to wash it. I'm gonna see how much I can get off. I may give it a quick rinse just because I think it's gonna detract from the steak itself. Moisture's not your friend when you're grilling. So I think the key is if you do find yourself wanting to give it a quick rinse, you've got to make sure you dry it off thoroughly for this experiment to really work. It's coming off. I might be successful without having to rinse it. So just scraping it off. And I will say that the meat does feel firmer because like when it dry ages, because it is taking some of the moisture out of meat, it firms up the meat. It doesn't toughen it up. The chemical reaction actually tenderizes the meat. And then we're going to treat it with LSR. We're going to treat all 3 steaks exactly the same way. And on the Wagyu, I'm not cutting the tail off of it as I did this one over here, the dry age. That way I can tell what steak's what and we can have a good test. And honestly, if this works, I mean, the rice, you can get it on Amazon. It's very affordable. And you can buy a whole ribeye from one of those big warehouse stores, cut it up, dry age it as I've done here. Might be something fun to do with your friends. So I'm just kind of, it's come off nicely. And I will say that I can tell that the meat is different. I don't know at this point how different it's going to taste. So we're going to do this experiment together, and it'll be fun for us all to kind of learn whether we think it's worth the effort. And like I said, I bought it on Amazon so that part wasn't time consuming. I'm just trimming up some of the shards and stuff. If I was in a competition, I would do something materially different. I would clean the steak up a lot more. But for the purposes of what we're doing here today, this is fine. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping this one separate. And so now I've got LSR. I'm going to treat all 3 exactly the same in terms of seasoning so we have a good test. So we got LSR, Lisa's steak rub, and then, you know, you want to be liberal. Don't overdo it, but you know, this is a thick piece of meat and you want it to be thoroughly seasoned. I will say for purposes of the test, this steak's probably a little thinner. We'll just keep that in mind. But we're gonna use our meter probes on these, and we're gonna cook when we get outside to grill, and I'm putting this on the sides too. We're gonna grill these to 128. That's the temperature I'm gonna grill to, because I like mine medium rare. And you always get carryover cooking time, so that's what I'm gonna do. It's super interesting to me to feel the different steaks because the Wagyu is considerably softer than the dry age, because the dry age, like I said, it does firm things up. And there you go. This one's firmer too. Okay, so we have those, and we're just going to set them aside for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then we're going to take them out and grill, and we'll be back and show you the grilling process, and we'll also do the taste test, and we'll give you our opinion on how this experiment came out. All right, we have moved outside, and we are going to grill the steaks for our dry aging experiment. So we've got 3 steaks, as we talked about earlier. One has been dry aged for 21 days. The other one is a Wagyu from Miso Meat Company. And the third one, we have treated with the Koji rice. So Russell and Rick are going to taste them in a little bit, but I don't want them to know what steak is what. We're using our new RecTech grill. It's a pellet grill, but what is unique about this grill is it has a searing capability. You put it on what's called the riot mode, which I think is a riot, and it gets it up as high as 700 degrees. So right now the grill's a little over 600. The grill grates are nice and hot because I'm going to be cooking 3 steaks. Typically, if I was doing a competition, these would be trimmed up a lot better. We would be worried about all that. But right now, I'm just doing a taste test. So I'm going to use my meter thermometers, and I've already preset them. And the reason I'm doing that is because that way I can simultaneously manage my different temperature ratios. So I'm coming in on each of the steaks. I know which one is which, and I'm putting the thermometer into the center of it. And each of these thermometers has a number on it, so I know what's what. And the other reason I'm doing this, because if I was just managing the temperature of one steak, I would probably undercook or overcook a steak, because these steaks are actually different thicknesses and sizes and weights. And so we want to get them all cooked pretty even. Okay, so I got that in there. We're going to go ahead and get these on the grill. I've got about 1 inch thickness on each of these, give or take a little bit on each of them. So I'm going to plan 1:15 a turn. When I get it turned around, I'll see where I'm at. I'm looking for a medium rare, medium steak on these to do a taste on it. So you can see I've got my grill grates in here. Russell brought me some duck fat. I like to cook with duck fat because it's got a high flash point. You want to make sure and cook with an oil that's not going to burn at these high temperatures, because it'll create bitterness. 1 steak down, 10 and 2. And I'm pressing them because I want grill marks. Get my other steak. Press it down. Close this up. I actually prefer to cook about 545, 600 for a steak. That's my preference. So that's why we let it get almost to 700 before we put the steak on. Because when you open it and close it, you're going to lose temperature. When you put the meat on it, it's going to reduce the temperature. We finished grilling our steaks. They're off the grill. We did 4 minute and 15-second turns. We buttered after we turned it over on the other side. We pulled them at about 130 degrees. We're going to let them rest for about 6 or 7 minutes. None of the steaks are going to be bad, right? We started with a good product. We treated them well. The LSR is great. It'll just be really interesting for me to see what that Koji rice does in terms of flavor. So we'll just let these rest, and we'll be right back. We got the 3 steaks, and we're going to cut into them. The grill marks look great.
Pretty good.
Not bad. This is perfect. Okay, cooked beautifully. Okay, so Rick and Russell, come over here. I'm going to cut you guys some pieces. Okay, so grab number one, each grab a bite. Well, I thought this was originally, I thought it was overcooked, but it's not. It's cooked perfectly. It's delicious. It's tender. It's got the right amount of rub on it. I loved it. What were your thoughts?
It's very tender, and I think the rub complemented it well. Got a full flavor to it. I liked it.
Number one is very good.
Can't beat it, hardly. Okay, let's try here and see if we can beat it. Let's jump in here. I think number two.
Well, it's even more tender.
Number two beats it.
Number two is very, very good.
Oh my gosh, that's really good. It's delicious.
Two. I certainly like number two better.
Number two is a winner so far.
Let me tell you something. You couldn't go to a steakhouse and get a steak better than number one, but number two just outdid it. And let's try number three over here. See where we go to. Wow. I would have a hard time picking which steak I like best. I think number two is my favorite, but they're all delicious. What's your thought?
Number three, coming in there right now, it's very tender, very tasty. Might have more flavor to me than number two.
I think it has more flavor. I agree with you on that, Rick. Okay, so who's ready for the great unveiling? While I stuff my face.
Well,
What's your guess?
my guess, this is an aged one. That's an aged one, and that's Wagyu.
That's actually incorrect.
Okay.
That's the Wagyu. That's the 21-day aged, and that's the Koji rice. I'm actually really surprised. I like the Koji rice. So I would say from a dry aging perspective, the Koji rice was a win.
That one's the winner overall.
In terms of tenderness, too.
Yes, without any doubt.
I am actually really surprised. So I knew that it would be good. I didn't think it would be a bad steak, but I had read several articles that said there was a certain sweetness to it because you know how miso has sweetness. I'm not getting the sweetness to it. I'm getting the umami that the Koji rice gives it. It's actually incredibly tender. It's shocking to me that we have one that's Wagyu, 21-day aged. And what they recommend with the Koji is to dry age it using the Koji rice for 48 hours. I really did probably 36 hours. I didn't do the full 48. And so I think if you did the full 48, you might even get more umami flavor out of it. So I give this a passing grade. I recommend it. And if anybody's interested in doing this dry aging hack, you don't need to buy a dry aging machine at home. You can buy this rice. I can put a link to the Amazon and how we got it. That's where we got it. And I used LSR on all three steaks. You saw how we prepped them. I'm surprised. What do you think, honey?
I thought, we'd read all about this Koji rice, and it lives up to everything it said it would do, I think.
Number three's the winner.
Yeah,
I
it
picked
is.
them wrong, but number three's the winner.
I like number two, but I still like number three.
I like them all.
Yeah.
I'm just really shocked.
Yeah.
We took a choice cut. I actually bought this at our local supermarket. It was on sale. So I'm just saying you can have a dry aged quality steak in your house. The rice is not expensive. And I only used a third of the pack. So this would be a winner, and I say go for it. I think you can actually replicate dry aged steak in your house.
Well, I think it was a good test. I'm glad you did that.
We need to do more of these. I would love for our viewers to tell us what other tests they would like to see. We really encourage you as you watch to please subscribe, ring the bell, and comment. Tell us what you think about this test. What other questions do you have so that we can bring those to your table? So from our table to yours, thank you for coming.